If you walked into the Bellagio or the Wynn on a Tuesday afternoon 20 years ago, you would have heard a roar, the sound of thousands of slot machines singing, the clatter of chips, the shouting at the craps tables. It was the sound of volume. It was the sound of the masses. But if you walk into those same properties today, especially during the week, you might notice something unsettling. It's quiet. The aisles are wider. The tables are empty. The $5 blackjack tables are gone, replaced by empty felt with $50 minimum signs sitting untouched. If you looked at this scene with untrained eyes, you would think the casino is failing. You would think, where are the people? Why aren't they lowering the prices to get bodies in the door? But I've spent the last 3 months analyzing 10 years of revenue reports, sitting in on earnings calls and speaking with former floor managers. And I found the answer. And it is an answer that should make every average tourist absolutely furious. That silence you hear, that isn't a failure. That is the business plan. In a recent earnings call, a major strip executive mentioned focusing on yield management rather than occupancy. It's a boring corporate phrase, but when you translate it, it means something brutal. It means they don't want you there. They don't want your $200 budget. In fact, the modern corporate casino views the middle-class tourist not as a customer, but as a logistical error, a cost to be eliminated. This is the story of the whale strategy. It's the story of how Las Vegas corporations quietly decided to fire their customers, empty their floors, and engineered an environment where the most profitable version of the city is one where you aren't in it. But to understand how we got to a place where casinos actually prefer empty tables to full ones, we have to look at the lie they've been selling us for the last decade. Part one, the official story. If you watch the commercials or read the press releases from MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, or Wynn, the narrative is always the same. They tell us that Las Vegas has evolved. They use words like luxury, curated, and experiential. When they replace a $20 buffet with a steakhouse where the cheapest cut is $85, they tell the press it's because tastes have changed. When they rip out a row of affordable slot machines to put in a high-limit lounge that sits empty 90% of the time, they say they are elevating the guest experience. The official story is that inflation and operating costs have forced them to raise prices and that the modern traveler demands a higher standard of luxury. They claim that the reason you can't find a $10 table is because they can't afford to staff it. They claim that paid parking is necessary for security and maintenance. It sounds plausible, right? We know labor costs are up. We know inflation is real. But here's the first crack in the facade. If the goal was simply to cover costs, we would see a strategy that tries to maximize volume to make up for thin margins. That is the Walmart model. You sell a lot of stuff at a low price. That was the Las Vegas model from 1950 to about 2005. Get them in the door with a 99-cent shrimp cocktail, give them a cheap room, and let the law of large numbers take their money at the tables. But when you look at the financial filings for the major casino REITs, real estate investment trusts, and the operating companies, you see a deliberate move away from volume. In fact, they are celebrating the decline in volume. I went back and looked at visitor volume data versus gaming revenue. In several quarters post-2020, visitor numbers were stagnant or even down compared to 2019 peaks, yet gaming revenue shattered records. How does that happen? How do you make more money with fewer people? You do it by changing your entire business model from Walmart to Hermès. But unlike a luxury handbag store that just sells expensive products, a casino has a unique mathematical problem. A low-budget customer in a luxury store just looks around and leaves. A low-budget customer in a casino consumes resources. They drink the free, playful cocktails. They use the bathrooms. They wear out the carpets. They require security. They take up a seat at a blackjack table that could be occupied by a high roller. The industry realized that the people watching era of Vegas, the crowded, sweaty, energetic floor, was actually hurting their bottom line. The official story is that they are upgrading the city for you. The reality is that they are gentrifying the casino floor to get rid of you. They are trying to solve a problem, and the problem is the mass market tourist. Part 2, following the money. To understand why they are doing this, you have to understand the most important acronym in the casino industry. It's not ROI. It's not EBITDA. It is ADT, Average Daily Theoretical. Every single person who signs up for a player's card has an ADT score attached to their profile. It is the casino's prediction of how much you are mathematically expected to lose per day, not how much you actually lost. You might get lucky and win $500, but how much you were supposed to lose based on your betting average and time played. In the old days, a casino was happy with a player who had an ADT of $50 or $100. If you had thousands of them, you paid the bills. But I want you to look at the economics of a low roller in 2024 through the eyes of a CFO. Let's say you sit down at a blackjack table with $200. You play for 3 hours. You drink 4 free beers. You tip the waitress $1 each time. You talk to the dealer. Maybe you win $50. Maybe you lose $50. To you, that was a fun afternoon. To the casino, you are a financial disaster. Let's break down the costs. The dealer costs the house roughly $30 to $40 an hour in wages and benefits. The floor supervisor watching the pit adds another cost layer. The free drinks cost the casino money, not just the liquid, but the service infrastructure, the security guard at the door, the HVAC system cooling the desert air to 68 degrees, the cleaners constantly wiping the glass. When I spoke to a former casino finance analyst, they put it bluntly. They said, if a guy sits at a table and bets $15 a hand, we are barely breaking even on the operational overhead of that specific seat. If he wins, we lose money. If he loses, we make pennies. But the opportunity cost is the real killer. The opportunity cost, that is the key. In their earnings calls, executives from VC Properties, the landlord that owns many of these buildings, and operators like MGM speak often about margin expansion. You achieve margin expansion by reducing the cost of goods sold. In a casino, the cost of goods is the service required to take your money. It takes the same amount of effort for a dealer to deal a card to a guy betting $15 as it does to a guy betting $5,000. The transaction time is identical. The electricity bill is identical, but the revenue is exponentially different. So the strategy shifted. They realized that 80% of their revenue was coming from 5% of their players. This is the Pareto principle on steroids. If you can fill the casino with that 5%, you make billions. If you fill it with the other 95%, you make millions, but you have to work 10 times as hard. So they decided to stop working hard. They looked at the data and realized that if they eliminated the bottom 50% of their customers, literally just deterred them from showing up, their revenue might dip slightly in the short term, but their profits would skyrocket because their expenses would collapse. They don't need 10,000 people losing $100. They need 100 people losing $10,000. And once you understand that math, every annoying thing about modern Vegas, the parking fees, the resort fees, the disappearing cheap eats, suddenly makes perfect sense. They aren't trying to squeeze an extra $20 out of you. They are trying to annoy you enough that you don't come at all, leaving the space open for the whale. Part 3, the internal strategy. This brings us to the core of the investigation. How do you actively fire a customer without putting up a sign that says poor people not allowed? You use a technique called demarketing. Demarketing is the practice of discouraging a specific class of customers on purpose. And the casinos are doing this through 3 specific mechanisms that I've identified. The first is the price wall. Have you walked through the high-end properties lately? The table minimums are not dynamic anymore. It used to be that at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, you could find a $10 table because the casino wanted to keep the dealers busy. Now you will see rows of empty tables with $50 or $100 minimums. I watched a pit boss at a major center strip property stand behind 4 completely empty blackjack tables for an hour. Dozens of tourists walked up, looked at the sign, shook their heads, and walked away. In the old model, the pit boss would lower the limit to $25 to fill the seats. Today, they are instructed to hold the line. Why? Because the whale, the target demographic, hates crowds. A former VIP host told me, and I quote, "My guys don't want to sit next to a tourist in cargo shorts who is sweating over a $25 bet. They want privacy. They want speed. An empty table is an asset to a high roller. It's a reserved seat waiting for them. The empty floor is a feature, not a bug. It's a VIP lounge that just happens to be the size of a football field." The second mechanism is the math trap. This is where it gets predatory. For the players who do stay and pay the higher minimums but aren't whales, the casinos have quietly changed the rules of the game to ensure they drain your money faster. The most egregious example is 6 to 5 blackjack. For decades, blackjack paid 3 to 2. If you bet $10 and got a blackjack, you won $15. Now, on almost all main floors, it pays 6 to 5. You bet $10, you win $12. That sounds like a small difference. It isn't. It increases the house edge by roughly 400%. It turns a game of skill into a slot machine. And who plays these games? The casual tourists. The whales don't play 6 to 5. In the high limit rooms, the rules are still traditional. The bad math is a tax specifically designed for the middle class. Then there is 000 roulette. Adding a third zero to the wheel increases the house edge to over 7.6%. It is one of the worst bets in the entire building. Yet these wheels are proliferating on the main floor, while the single zero wheels are locked away in the high limit salon. They are segregating the math. If you're rich, you get a fair game. If you're middle class, you get a rigged game designed to bust you out in 45 minutes so you can leave and make room for someone else. The third mechanism is friction, paid parking, resort fees that hit $50 or $60 a night. No coffee makers in the room, so you have to go downstairs and pay $9 for a latte. These are friction points. For a whale, these costs are invisible, usually comped anyway. For a budget traveler, they are agonizing. They create a psychological barrier. The strategy is to make the experience so financially stressful for the low-value customer that they self-deport to off-strip properties or downtown, leaving the strip essentially as a gated community for the 1%. Part 4, the human cost. Now, you might say, it's a private business. They can charge what they want, and that's true. But there is a human cost to this strategy that goes beyond your vacation budget. This shift from volume to value is devastating the local workforce. I dug into the employment numbers. While revenue is up, staffing levels in many departments have not returned to pre-pandemic levels. Why? Because you don't need as many workers if you don't have as many customers. Think about the ecosystem of a casino. When you have 5,000 people on the floor, you need cocktail waitresses, you need porters to clean the ashtrays, you need valets, you need change attendants. These are tip positions. These are jobs that sustain the local Las Vegas economy. But when you pivot to the whale strategy, you are serving fewer people. The whale might tip the VIP host $5,000, but they aren't tipping the valet who parks 300 cars a night because there are no longer 300 cars to park. The velocity of money slows down for the working class. Furthermore, we are seeing the rise of automation as a direct result of this disdain for the low roller. Electronic table games, those stadium setups where one dealer is on a camera and 50 people are betting on screens, are the ultimate expression of this. They allow the casino to service the low value customers without wasting human labor on them. If you want a human connection, you have to pay the premium. If you are on a budget, you interact with a screen. I spoke with a dealer who has worked the strip for 15 years. They told me that the joy is gone from the floor. It used to be a party, they said. People were high-fiving, jumping around. Now it's quiet. It's serious. The people sitting at my table are stressed because the minimum is $50 and they can't afford to lose. And the rich guys, they don't talk to you. You're just a mechanism to them. The soul of the city, the chaotic democratic mix of princes and paupers rubbing shoulders, is being surgically removed. Part 5, the cover-up. But here's where it gets interesting. If the casinos are actively trying to push out the middle class, why do they still send you emails? Why do they still offer you gold status and free play? This is the cover-up. They need to maintain the illusion of accessibility while removing the reality of it. Loyalty programs, MGM rewards, Caesars rewards, have been recalibrated to hide the truth. They hand out tier credits like candy, giving you shiny plastic cards that make you feel like a VIP. But if you look at the redemption value, it has plummeted. The free room offers come with high resort fees that act as a hidden ticket price. They use these programs to keep you on the hook, just enough to fill the hotel rooms on a slow Tuesday, but they entrap you in the bad math on the floor. It's a gaslight. They tell you you are a valued member, while the algorithm on the back end has flagged you as non-profitable. And the media plays a huge role in this. Travel vloggers and influencers are often given the whale treatment by PR teams. They get the suite, the steak dinner, the VIP access. They make videos showing how glamorous Vegas is. They don't show the $100 minimums on a Tuesday. They don't show the 6 to 5 payouts. They show the fantasy. And because you see the fantasy, when you show up and can't afford anything, you don't blame the casino. You blame yourself. You think, I guess I just didn't save enough. You don't realize that the game was rigged before you even booked the flight. But here's the part they really don't want you to know. This strategy works until it doesn't. Part 6, what happens next? We are approaching a tipping point. I've been looking at the long-term projections, and the industry is making a dangerous bet. They are betting that the supply of whales is infinite. They are betting that they can permanently alienate the middle class without consequence. But history suggests otherwise. We are already seeing the Macau-ification of Las Vegas. In Macau, the main floors are largely irrelevant. The real money is in the private junket rooms. Vegas is moving toward that model. I predict that in the next 5 years, we will see physical barriers going up. We are already seeing salons and reserves that require badge access. Soon, the main casino floor at top-tier properties like the Wynn or Bellagio will essentially be a lobby, a visual museum for tourists to walk through, take a selfie, and leave while the actual gaming happens behind frosted glass. But the danger is that Vegas relies on the vibe. The whales come to Vegas because it feels exciting. It feels alive. If you remove the mass market, you remove the energy. You turn the casino into a sterile banking hall. And if the energy dies, the whales might just decide to stay home and gamble on their phones. The casinos are cannibalizing their own ecosystem. They are eating the plankton to feed the whales, forgetting that without the plankton, the ocean dies. The confrontation. So here is the reality. The next time you walk into a Las Vegas casino and you feel that sense of exclusion, that tightness in your chest because the table limits are too high and the vibe is too cold, know that it is not in your head. It is in their quarterly report. They have built a filter and you are the sediment they are trying to scrub out. Vegas didn't get expensive by accident. It got expensive by design. They looked at the numbers and decided that an empty floor with one guy betting $1 million is better than a full floor with 1,000 people betting 100. And so to the executives at VC, MGM, and Caesars, we are asking publicly, is this the end game? Is the goal to eventually close the doors to the general public entirely? Because looking at your ADT thresholds and your table minimums, it certainly looks like you're trying to build a private country club in the middle of the desert. And to you, the viewer, have you felt this shift? Have you walked into a casino you used to love and felt like you were trespassing? Have you noticed the silence? I want to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments below. Tell me about the table minimums, the service, the vibe. Let's build our own data set because the one they released to the shareholders only tells half the story. This is just part one of our deep dive into the industry. Next week, we are going to look at the machines themselves, the rigged algorithms inside the new skill-based slots that are designed to drain millennials dry. You do not want to miss that. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember, the house always wins, but it wins a lot faster when they change the rules. I'll see you in the next one.